Hello, everyone, and welcome to our unit on trigonometry. So in this chapter, we're going to be dealing with triangles and circles. We're going to learn about something called the unit circle. But first, we're going to start with some special right triangles. So there's two really important special triangles that have right angles that we need to know information about that were going to help us later in the unit. So let's start with a warm-up. And I want you to solve this problem for x. Think about how you would do it. Okay, you don't need to know any of the angles yet. We can just solve for x. Pause the video, try it out. When you're ready, let's take a look at the answer. Okay, so maybe you remembered that with right triangles, we can use Pythagorean theorem. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared, x squared plus x squared equals 12 squared. We can combine like terms, we can divide, and then we take the square root. We can simplify a square root, which we learned many chapters ago. Okay, now this number is going to be really important, that both these sides are 6 times the square root of 2. And I'm going to learn something today. How can I get from a leg to the hypotenuse or a hypotenuse to the leg? This is actually a special right triangle, which we're going to talk about. So today we're going to see a 45, 45, 90 triangle, which we just saw in the warm-up, and a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So 45, 45, 90, talking about the angles, same thing about 30, 60, 90 triangle. So first we're going to explore the 45, 45, 90 triangle. So I want you to draw an isosceles triangle, just like there was in the warm-up. Two congruent legs, a right angle, hypotenuse. Okay, and we're going to label it with the angles. I want you to label the hypotenuse C, and we're going to find the length of one of the legs in terms of C. So here's our picture. Okay, our 45, 45, 90 triangle. We learned that if these two angles are 45, the opposite legs have to be the same length, and the hypotenuse is C. So now we're going to set up an equation using Pythagorean theorem, and I want to get x in terms of C. So the final thing should say x equals. So let's manipulate this equation a little bit. We can get 2x squared equals c squared. We can get x squared equals c squared divided by 2. And then we can take the square root of both sides, and we get x equals c, because it's the square root of c squared, divided by the square root of 2. So c divided by the square root of 2. Or we can do something called rationalizing the denominator, and we do c times the square root of 2 divided by 2. So if I know c, we're going to be able to get to x. So I take c and divide it by the square root of 2. Likewise, if I know x, I'm going to be able to multiply it by the square root of 2 to get c. So this works in a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So here's the rules. Okay, if I'm going from small to big, so if I'm going from the leg to hypotenuse, I multiply by the square root of 2. And if I'm going from the hypotenuse to the leg, I divide by the square root of 2. So go ahead and write that down. You don't have to use Pythagorean theorem when you see a 45, 45, 90 triangle. You need to remember to go from small to big, you multiply by square root of 2, and go big to small, you divide by square root of 2. Now case 2 is a little bit more intricate. We're going to draw an equilateral triangle, which means all the sides are the same length, all the angles are the same. We're going to draw a vertical line that cuts the top angle in half. We're going to label those angles, and we're going to figure out some lengths. So we're going to start, okay, these two angles are 60 degrees. This top angle, the whole angle is also 60 degrees, but we're going to cut it in half. We're going to write down the angle measures of this momentarily. Okay, we're going to say this side is x, and this side is x, and the whole bottom is x. Okay, I cut the angle in half, so 30 degrees and 30 degrees, and I cut the side length in half to get a right angle, so I have x over 2, whatever half of x is. And now I'm going to solve for y, because I know this length, if the hypotenuse is x, the side opposite 30 is half of x, and I can use Pythagorean theorem to solve for y. And I'm going to do that. X over 2 squared plus y squared equals x squared. You can square both numerator and denominator. I can subtract, get y squared equals 3x squared over 4, because we have 1/4 and we have 1 minus 1/4, which is 3/4. We could take the square root and simplify and get y. If I know x, it's x times the square root of 3 over 2. So all these sides can be written in terms of the hypotenuse, or we're going to see it can be written in terms of this smallest side. So here are the rules that you need to know. If we can find the shortest side, so the shortest side is opposite 30. If we can find this short side, we can get to the hypotenuse by multiplying by 2. And we can go from the short side to the medium side by multiplying by the square root of 3. So we always should find the side opposite 30 first. And then we can find the side opposite 60, and we can find the hypotenuse. And I like to call them the short. Okay, so we can call short, medium, and long. And labeling always going to help us. Okay, now to go from big to small, we just divide. So if I have the 60 side, I can divide by the square root of 3. If I have the hypotenuse and I want to go back to the 30 side, I can divide by 2. So let's take a look at this in action. Okay, first one I have a 45, 45, 90 triangle, says find x and y. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, first off, 45, 45, 90 triangle, the legs are the same, so if I find one, I find both. Okay, we need to go from large to small. Okay, I know the hypotenuse is the long one, so I'm going to divide, and my rule says divide by square root of 2. So I can take 3 square root of 2, divide by square root of 2, square root of 2 cancel out, and I'm left with 3. So x is 3, and y is 3. So go down, we divide, smallest side we divide. Okay, and remember 45, 45, 90, we're dividing by square root of 2. Now, second case is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Maybe helpful to write the 30 in for that angle. So we need to go and find the smallest side first. I like circling the smallest side, which is opposite the 30. So I know to go from the hypotenuse to the small side, I divide by 2. So I can divide by 2, means 4 divided by 2 is 2, so I have 2 square root of 3. And now to go from small to medium, I multiply by the square root of 3. And we're going to do that here. So to find the medium side, multiply the small side by the square root of 3. And we can do that. We can do 2 square root of 3 times square root of 3. The square root of 3 times square root of 3 becomes 3. And then this side is 6. So this is 6, and this is 2 square root of 3. So we can do this. Okay, 2 or 3 rules we practice. We don't have to use Pythagorean theorem. We just need to know to go from small to big, we multiply, and what do we multiply by? And now it's your turn. So in each case, find x and y. Pause the video, test it out. When you're ready, unpause it, and hopefully we get 4 correct answers. Okay, you tried it out. Let's take a look at the answers. So we're going to have to divide by 2 to get the small side, multiply by square root of 3. We can leave our answers as square root. We don't need to write it as decimal unless the problem tells us to. Here's another 30, 60, 90 triangle. We have the small side. So to go to the big side, we multiply by 2. So we have 8 square root of 3 over 3. And to go from the small to the medium, we multiply by square root of 3. So to go from here to here, we'd have 4 square root of 3 over 3 times square root of 3. Now square root of 3 times square root of 3 becomes 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and that's how I got 4. So you'll keep practicing this. Okay, sometimes we're going to make mistakes, but that's why we keep practicing. So one more set of practice. Okay, here's some more problems. Draw the picture. Set it up. Find the answers. When you're ready, unpause the video, and we will see if you got them right. Okay, hopefully you noticed that both of these are 45, 45, 90 triangles. Okay, I have 2 congruent legs, x and x, so we have x root 2. So 9 root 2 miles and 40 root 2 times square root of 2, square root of 2 times square root of 2 becomes 2, so I have 40 times 2 and get 80. Now we're going to use these 30, 60, 90 triangles and 45, 45, 90 triangles when we get to circle trigonometry in a few lessons. So make sure that you have the rules of when do I multiply by square root of 3, and when do I double it, and how to go from big to small. I'll keep practicing special right triangles.